Okay. Well, then, I'm not trying to grind her down to be perfect. If I'm worried about that, I can do that more, but honestly, I'm really not. It's gonna be covered by the battery box anyways. I just wanted something solid there. So next thing I'm gonna work on, like I have a little spot that's blown through. I'll get that, but I'm gonna start working on making the brackets to get the battery box put in place. We'll do that for both sides, and then once I get the battery boxes made, I will close that up. I'm gonna try to fill in a bunch of these holes, I think. I don't know, I may not, but just kind of, I guess, seems like eventually all this is probably gonna get cut out anyways, because I do plan on doing coilovers or ORIs or something in the future. So I don't want to go too above and beyond, so I probably won't plug the holes. I was going to because I want it to look good, but I just think it's kind of a waste of time at this point, so with future plans. But anyways, get started on those brackets and figure out exactly how I want those. So, all right. Okay, I just made some simple L brackets out of some flat bar. So 2 for each side. I'll do something else for the other side, but essentially I'll just put them like this, and I'll make it to where, kind of show you. So I'll make it to where I stay. I'll weld it here, and then that way when a battery's not in there, I can get right to here to bolt it up. So I'll put one there. Sorry if I'm moving the camera around a bunch. I'm trying to. I'll put another one there, and then I'll figure out where I want to put the other one. What I might end up doing is once I do the plate here, I might attach it there, but because I think if I had one here, and then like one in the middle, that'd be plenty. I don't think it needs to be any more than that. Or maybe what I'll do even is make it, well, no. I'll figure it out. I'll figure out exactly what I want to do. But for now, I'm just going to tack these in place, and well, I'll probably drill the holes first, and I'll get them tacked in place. But that's what it's going to be. That spaces it up 1 3/4 inches, which will make it, before the battery terminal was up here about flush, and when we're done, it should be down here. So the hood won't be an issue at all. And then I'm gonna try to, my cross cable to attach both the batteries, I want to go underneath here and up and over. But I'm not isolating one of the batteries. The biggest reason I have dual batteries is because when you're doing a long hard pull with the winch, these, at least the Jeeps before with the alternators they had, it killed them. This is actually the motor out of my Jeep. This is my cousin's Jeep that he bought. I sold him the motor, and I'm kind of helping him put it in. He's doing most of it because he's doing it in the midst of me doing my project. But I had bought a, I don't remember the brand, but I had bought an alternator that was capable of, mostly what people use them for was subsystems and big stereo systems. But it was a 220 volt charge. I don't remember exactly, but it replaced it. The kit came with battery cables and alternator and everything, and so it was just a lot higher amp charge, and that helped tremendously. I did the dual batteries before that. That helped quite a bit, but it just kind of elongated how long and hard I could pull, because you could just watch this factory alternator, and I had replaced it with a new factory alternator, but you could just watch it charge less and less and less until, you know, like I said, depending on how long and hard of a pull it was, lights would start flickering. My uncle actually got stuck in his Duramax up in the mountains one time, and I was pulling him out, and I had to, it was a hard pull. I actually had to hook to a tree, because obviously he weighs a heck of a lot more than twice as much as my Jeep does. I had to hook to a tree, so otherwise it would just suck me to him. But about the time that he would start coming out, my lights would start flickering. We'd have to stop and wait, and then we'd get them another few feet, and then we have to stop and wait. So this setup makes it to where I don't have to do that. After having that alternator and the dual batteries, I could winch all day long essentially. So anyways, that's where we're at. Like I said, I'm gonna get some holes drilled in those brackets, and then I'm gonna tack both of those on, and then that way I can figure out what else I want to do from there. I'll also grab my angle finder. That way probably what I'll do is try to match this angle, not that angle, because especially we're welding in that plate, but I think on both sides they're a bit uneven, so I would rather have my batteries look even across that plane. So sorry, across this plane, not this plane. So anyways, that's where we're at. That's what I'm gonna do. Hey guys, it's been a couple days. Just been working on wiring and some other boring stuff, trying to clean that up. I don't know if I recorded this, but I got rid of my power steering box and that cross frame that I have. It's right here. I think I mentioned it, but it comes into contact with my power steering pulley. So that was a Dakota box, Dakota, Durango, I don't remember which, but whichever one is a common swap. And they're a little bit bigger. And I also, the bracket that I have, this white one here, it was specific for doing that swap, and it sticks out a little bit more than the factory one. So it barely like I could turn the pulley, but it was rubbing. So by going back to a XJ box, as well as, I'm just gonna trim that bracket honestly, because the holes line up and everything. It's just deeper studs. But so between all that, we should be able to get the spacing, the correct spacing that I need. And it probably won't clear by tons, but it should clear, you know, by, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch or something. Hopefully more than that, but at least that. And then I've been gonna do hydraulic steering, so I'm just gonna plan on getting that added. Because the JK, sorry, not JK, but the XJ steering box is not going to turn these 40-inch tires. But anyways, but basically all I have left to do is the wiring I'm going to leave like it is for now. I'll kind of tape it back up in certain spots, and then I'm going to wait until the motor's in there. You know, I did a bunch of research to see what I could clip, and then figured out what I know I can clip, and trace some wires that I know I need to keep, but I don't want to keep anything that I don't need. But I'm just going to go ahead and kind of formalize that all once I get it all put together. So like the standalone wiring harness kit, for instance, doesn't come with the AC power wire, and I'm keeping ACs, so I'm going to retrofit all that. So but a few things that I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of these brackets. When I put the long arm kit on here, I did not get rid of these. These I just cut off, and then I welded that. Figured it just added some rigidity. It wasn't really in the way. I got rid of all my factory fuel lines. I'm gonna run new fuel lines, and I'll share why that's important later. But for now, I just did that, so I left my brake line. I also am gonna run a new line for the breather for the fuel tank, and then I'm gonna change this bracket or something, because I want everything up nice and close and tighter. I don't want it sticking out here. The manifold's fairly close to there, or rather is going to be. But once I get all that stuff done, it's pretty much on to paint, and then we'll stab this motor back in here. So I have a lot of things prepped for the motor already. So basically, once we get her back in, I think things will go fairly smooth. Like getting the engine actually running and done, I think is going to go fairly smooth. The shifters are probably going to be one of the harder parts, but I should have done this beforehand, and I didn't. But it does line up with this factory hole, but it's definitely going to have to go in deeper, which is fine. I just don't want it to come over this way, because I don't want it to apparently there's grease right there, but I just don't want it to come over further that way, because then the shifters will be in my ankles. So I might have to bend the shifters and everything, and that's fine. I'm perfectly content with doing that. But basically, here's where we're at. The other thing that I've been working on, which this part will probably be a little controversial, Yeah, controversial. If I could talk, words are hard sometimes. I think I might have shown a little bit of this, but I've been working on making it to where I can put two full-size batteries in the front. So this was the hole from the old snorkel, which is going to go away. But and then my tire was rubbing a little bit right here, so it's going to be even more of an issue. But I'll just limit my up travel just by a little bit more. And I think it was really only when I was turning. So, and to be honest, I think I'm probably going to put another inch or so lift on this one. But I'll show you this real quick. Where'd I put my battery box? Oh, here we go. So I haven't finished quite yet, but basically these will go right here like this, and I'll put another bracket there, but there's, you know, basically just enough room for them to go there, and the other one will go here. This one, there is a little bit more room than there is on that side, and that's because the way I have it now, I had it to where this went on top of my battery. That doesn't work on that one. I had to cut the brackets a little bit on the other side. But anyways, so I made it to where it will still, so this battery box will be forward slightly more, but it's not my best work by any means, but I had to use a bunch of different chunks of steel, even parts of the body that I had cut out before. So, but that's basically where we're at. I'm gonna clean up a little bit more, take care of those few things that I mentioned. I'm gonna re-weld the motor mounts because I welded those with the motor in there, and the welds aren't very, I mean, they're fine, they'll hold, but I would like them to look better, for one, and for two, I want to make sure that they're quite strong. But I'm gonna get at that, so I'll probably throw you on time lapse and maybe just show some random stuff, but I'm not gonna bore you guys with all those details. But once that's done and we start throwing her back together for paint, once that's done and we paint her, then we'll start throwing her back together. But I like how everything's gonna turn out. I had already made a modification for my breaker panel to go up here. I got rid of this seam here. I'm sure you guys can see that, which some of you may be worried about, but it's fine. And actually, eventually in the future, all this is gonna get cut out anyways, because I am gonna put coilovers or ROIs on this thing. I haven't decided which for sure. And this thing is gonna get a roll cage that ties into everything. So doing all that, I'm not worried about it. In part, I think, you know, maybe I shouldn't paint it, but I'm gonna throw the LS in there. I can always repaint those sections, so I'm gonna go ahead and paint it. That way it looks good. And to be perfectly frank, I don't like blue. I don't, and I don't even know that I'd call this a blue. It's kind of a turquoise, but I just don't like blue. I don't think it's a very appealing color. And this thing is gonna change colors here very soon. So anyways, all right guys, let's get to it. All right guys, I'm changing my plan a little bit. Originally I was gonna come down to a plate there, angle bracket like I did here, but the reason I'm not gonna do that now is because I wanna come up with studs from underneath the fender that this can go down on. And that way there's no bolt sticking through that my tire might be able to catch on. And here the best place to do it is gonna be centered, or one on each end, and I don't think that that's necessary to do one on each end. So what I'm gonna do is have this slotted one that'll go right here in the center, and I'll have it to where that slot ends up right at the bolt location. But then that way this can still come straight up because of this being slotted. If it wasn't slotted, I don't know that I'd really be able to get it out, because I want to be able to take the battery boxes out if for some reason I need to in the future. I don't know that I will, but it's better, you know, better to plan for it and not need it than to need it and not have planned for it. So anyways, to get those both knocked out real quick and then move on to the next thing. go, and just like that, I can bolt down nice and tight. We'll get our holes drilled and everything, and then we'll go ahead and knock out the other side. That side I already had a hole. So I didn't really worry about it so much, but all right, I'm gonna get these motor mounts welded up the rest of the way. As far as welding goes, that's everything. Well, no, we gotta weld the, I gotta mark the studs, drill the holes, and mark for the studs, drill the holes, and then put them in the backside. But as far as welding goes, other than that, that's pretty much a wrap. It's just basically work on getting everything else cleaned up the rest of the way, so, and then paint. So we'll get it finished. All right, guys. She's all sanded down, and then went over with oil and grease remover, and then taped off what I'm worried about taping off. I'm not going to tape the wires all up. I'm not going to worry about it. I'll just kind of move them around and as I need to, and spray where I need to. But go ahead and put you back on QuickTime, and we're just going to hammer this out. I was originally, those figures don't want to come off. They're irrelevant. Was originally going to tape that one off, but I'm not going to worry about it. A lot of that information is irrelevant now too. So anyways, I'll get to it. Evening, guys. So X-Ray is all painted up. I think she's looking pretty decent. I kind of got everything put back together. Like I mentioned before, the wiring harness I'm going to work on after I get the engine in there and everything. I got to do a little bit more research, and I haven't had the time to do that, but I will get it done. Anyways, tonight I'm going to focus on a couple things. One, I need to get the Atlas transfer case back on there outside and get the studs put in, because it's kind of a pain to get the studs in there underneath the vehicle. I was trying under there, and I was just like, you know what, I'll get it out of here, it'll be fine. So I need to work on that. And then the other thing is the tail shaft. There's a gear that goes on the tail shaft for the speedometer, and it just won't quite fit. So what Advanced Adapters said to do is take some sandpaper basically and try to sand that surface down a little bit, because it's like it kind of goes on there, but it just won't slide on. So I'm sure I could smack it on with a mallet or something, but I don't want to do that. So I need to do those two things. Once I get those two things done, we're gonna get her stabbed back in here. So I'm gonna get going. Just stay tuned, and I guess we'll see how far we get tonight. All right. Okay, so I got that on. I had to sand that for probably a good 20 minutes or so, just sanding all the way around. And then I did have to tap her on. She still just didn't quite want to go, but just little tiny taps, and she was sliding right on. So I feel good about that. But yeah, we're basically at the point that I'm gonna put that tail shaft back on now, and then start throwing her in the Jeep. So I'll get that thrown together real quick, and then we'll go from there. Thanks for watching this week's video, everybody. Make sure to tune in next week, as this thing should be firing up finally.